Is it a crime that I bought a laptop without consulting my family? I honestly need some validation. I'm 18F. I've been wanting a laptop for a while, like months. I need it for schoolwork, first and foremost. I also want it for music production and gaming, two hobbies important to me. So I ordered a decently priced laptop with enough gigabytes and a warranty. Oh, and a case for it too. I did my research on it and made sure I could afford it. Now, since my mom used one of my insecurities against me during a breakdown I had, I stopped telling her much about me. My dumbass decided to tell her about the laptop. She immediately got upset. Why don't you discuss things with me or your older sister? Why did you just go and buy a laptop? Does it even have enough space? It seemed so ridiculous. She always talks about me being independent and not spending all my money on snacks. Now that I do something that benefits me, she's upset I didn't consult her. I thought adulthood was trusting in your own decisions. She doesn't consult her mom or older relatives whenever she buys shit. Am I in the wrong for not telling my mom? This is insane. It is the day before I am meant to go to college after taking a gap year to retake the exams that I did not do well in due to circumstances surrounding my father. Within that gap year, I also traveled to 3 places. Everything was funded by myself, even the exams, despite my father who should have really been the one too. I have been funding myself since I got my job at 16, even with things my parents really should have paid for. It is the day before I am meant to go college. I have not spoken to my dad since June after a massive argument involving him owing me $500. This was the argument that broke the camel's back. Years of controlling behavior, narcissism, and emotional and verbal abuse have finally hit, and I'm slowly starting to accept that he will never change. I get a call from him as I'm packing and I hesitantly pick up. I was deciding whether I should say goodbye to him despite not speaking to him. I guess African parents have really ingrained the respect aspect into my head. I answer and he asks for me to come down. I do, and after not speaking for months, he asks what I need for uni. It started off with making a plan for things I need to buy. Keep in mind, he spoke to me as though he was boss. Not my father, but I don't know why I expected that from him anyway. After 2 minutes of that, he goes on to his lectures of shit I do not need to be told, about how I'm sharing a kitchen, and I can't be messy like I always am, as if I have not been the only one cleaning up in his house. He says I need to focus and can't keep following friends like I always do, all this BS that stems from the hate he has that I am not going to let him control me anymore. Get this, he then starts going on about how I feel entitled to my own money. Is that not the stupidest shit I have ever heard in my life? He says that the money I used on the holidays could have been used on my uni. The money I worked hard for, the money I was also using to fund everything for myself, including tutoring, exam fees, food, clothes, everything. My parents, or should I say mother, as my dad has never paid anything for me in his life, has never had to worry about paying a thing for me. God forbid I use my own income on things for me to enjoy myself. How am I supposed to predict he would lose his job in May? They've had so many years to prep for me to go to uni college, especially with me never asking them for a dime, that I find it utterly ridiculous he expected me to save for rent. My savings are the savings and for my plans. He says it is a privilege and not a right for them to support me, the very parents who wanted me to go in the first place. This man does not want to be a father. He refuses to spend money and time on all of his children because to him the only thing he cares about being a father for is the ability to control people's finances and control what they do. Every rule applies except for him, to yell at me for feeling entitled to my own money. I have to laugh. I have my answer now. I am okay leaving tomorrow, not saying goodbye to that man. I went from school teacher to chairman of the board of a big company for the sake of revenge. When I was a tiny kid, my father was my best friend. He worked multiple jobs to support my family, all while powering his way through law school. He even built a couple of small businesses from the ground up with a couple of his friends. All while doing this, he managed to be the best dad ever, spending as much time as he could with my mother, myself, and my baby siblings. One day we found out that he had stage 4 stomach cancer, the kind that you don't recover from. My mother and I stayed by his side all the way till it was all over. The last memory I have of my father was when he was completely immobile, practically a vegetable at this point with tubes going in and out of his body, and me just praying that he'd still be able to remember who I was. All the guy could do was smile at me, just to let me know he still recognized his son, even if the doctors told us most of his memories would be gone. Eventually, he fell into a coma for some days before waking up to say goodbye to my mother, who was by his side when he was unalived. She was a housewife, so we really didn't have much to go on after his unaliving. Enter my grandfather. He was one of those self-centered boomer types who makes everything about himself. After my father was unalived, he'd use the newspaper obituary to boast about his unalived son's grades and achievements, which I realized seemed to be the only thing my dad was to him. Just in case you were wondering, yes, we are Asian. My mother was grieving and trying to find a way to make ends meet, and my grandfather graciously offered to help her control my father's 2 businesses to help support us. My mother agreed because she didn't have any experience. While we grew up, the 2 businesses didn't provide much for us, likely because my father was one of the big reasons they were thriving. Mom was in and out of multiple jobs just to keep us floating. My grandfather offered to help put me and my siblings through school. I managed to score some scholarships with some good schools growing up, so thankfully he didn't have to do as much for me. But we were really glad that he helped out with my siblings. After I made it out of school, I found out that my family was broke, and my 2 siblings were still making their way through medical school. My sister even offered to stop and just get a job, but I told her to keep going because she was doing so well and that she deserved to graduate. My grandparents had cut us off because they didn't approve of the directions my siblings took in life, especially my sister, who was, for them, too female to have a career in medicine. My grandmother is a bit of a misogynist. Why are you wasting your time and money becoming a doctor? You're just going to have children and quit. I was working as a high school teacher when I was contacted by one of my dad's old business partners for one of his companies. After I asked him about how the company was doing, he told me that my grandfather, who was still in control of my father's shares, was siphoning money from the company for himself, and he was earning way more than he was giving me and my siblings for our education. So all our lives he'd been making us feel indebted to him for money that was supposed to be ours to begin with, and he lied to us by telling us that Dad's companies weren't making any money for us at all. We also realized that when he cut us off, he was cutting us off from our own money, forcing my siblings to drop out and give up careers that they'd been working their whole lives for. What's worse is that this was our father's money, and we know that he'd wanted it to help us provide for our futures even after he was unalived, and here comes his asshole father basically shitting on his legacy for his own enrichment. I even found out that he used his position to take possession of the company's office space and forced them to set up shop in a smaller, cheaper office while renting the original space out under his own name to the company's competitors to make money from them too, all while I had to work multiple jobs to help my mother and siblings pay the bills. Cue revenge. My grandfather's biggest weakness has always been his pride. In fact, I suspect that he wanted us to think he was helping support us out of his own pocket because he wanted everyone to think he was some kind of hero when in reality he was financially choking us. I recognized that no matter what my grandfather said, my siblings, my mother, and I were legally the owners of my father's company shares. So after having a statement signed by the 3 of them, I approached all the board of directors sans my grandfather and let them know that I was now that sole representative of my late dad's estate. My grandfather also made himself chairman of the board. According to the company records, he did no work for the company at all, so the position was just a name that allowed him to receive money. So I convinced them that since he was only chairman as representative of my father's estate, that made me the chairman. I did not intend to keep the position because I did not have the experience for it. Then I contacted other members of my extended family about my grandfather's unethical practices with the company's office space. He was eventually pressured by them into evicting the company's main competitor from their office space. Serves them right for conniving with my grandfather to take the company's old office space. At the next board meeting, I prepared for the moment I'd been waiting my entire life for. When he entered the conference room to preside over the meeting as the chairman, he found his chair facing away from the table with all the board members already seated at the table, and like a Bond villain, I spun the chair around to reveal to him that I'd been the one sitting there the entire meeting, I told him that the company and my family no longer needed him and that I'd be taking control over representation of my father's estate. "Do you know that I'm the one who put him and his siblings through school?" he said in shock. I only went, "No, Dad did." The look of sheer embarrassment on his face was perfect. I've never seen him look defeated my entire life until that moment, and this sort of satisfaction could not be achieved by simply ratting him out. I stepped down from the chairman position and took a job in the company's treasury department as a bookkeeper with a meager salary. But at least now any profit sharing or dividends that the company released would go where my father wanted it to go. And finally, one of the first decisions I got to make as a board member before stepping down was to give my mother a permanent job that she deserved. My grandfather is now jobless. He spends all his time at home, and because he spent his life being selfish and self-centered, he has no friends. All he had going for him was being able to power trip over other people and boasting about his assets and achievements. Even my grandmother has had it with him, and the two don't even sleep in the same room anymore. I hope he lives the rest of his short life regretting that he didn't live his life with more compassion and humility. Edit. I've gotten a lot of comments about the legality of what went on. During all this, the only lawyer working in the company was my grandfather, and we all know he did jack shit. When we hired a team of actual helpful lawyers, they told us exactly the same things you guys pointed out. They're still trying to clean everything up so we don't get into big trouble. Update. Apparently my sister saw this post and just informed me that he's kinda miserable now, because his wife is angry at him because he siphoned what's left of their money to an extramarital sugar baby he had in probably another attempt at getting someone to affirm and glorify him. I guess he hasn't learned. I'm not supposed to be in the school I'm in. I was told by my principal that they said that I had potential, so they covered for me, giving me the minimum requirements for a good high school. I was always absent in my elementary school, yet they told me I was smart, probably backed up by the fact I was actually doing better than most of my classmates despite being absent, and I still passed the entrance exams for that school. So, will this info get me karma'd in the future or nah? 'Cause I don't think my future's looking bright right now. Bias towards seafood and screaming results in a healthy dish of family karma. So, for 7 months I, the East Asian, non-Vietnamese, lived in a household of 4 disrespectful, dull, mostly narcissistic students in their senior years of getting their bachelor's degrees in similarly dull, undiscussed majors at a local, expensive Christian college in Texas. The primary bond was the food among them, the universal display of cooperation, attention-seeking, or apology-making, depending on the occasion. And so was the group shopping, to which I was never invited at the local American Costco, despite me being old enough to be their grandmother and studying to become a hermitess nun, which I thought would go over well with their Buddhist beliefs. Well, I got consecrated as hermitess sooner than expected, around Christmas time and well before Vietnamese New Year, and, no congratulations, but an increased amount of side eyes every now and then, and a distinct presence of people walking away from me and texting on their phones whenever I would begin to start conversation beyond yes or no answers with them. No thank yous when I paid out of my own pocket to hang appropriate holiday decorations that they obviously couldn't afford because they were spending it on liquor and weed on selected weekends. I thought the intermittent visits from the landlady herself from Vietnam would turn things around. It didn't. Different methods were tried for group text and cooperation and friendliness, but no, the majority of the household was hell-bent on existing in its own bubble. Finally, the landlady revealed herself by word and deed as narcissistic ringleader of the group as spring approached. Final exams were prepared for, and graduation day celebration at the house. All hell broke loose when she suddenly got a notice in the mail that her property taxes had gone up by $1,000, at the same time that she learned her daughter had lost yet another college scholarship for continued education. The daughter's boyfriend was summarily booted out of the house for premarital sleepovers, which resulted in audible rounds of screaming between mom and daughter, usually followed by nights on the phone to Vietnam for the family to coordinate how to sell off the house. But apparently the scream fests and drama simply weren't enough unless shared with an innocent bystander, and a scapegoat had to be chosen. I was alternately blamed, talked down to, response baited, then also screamed at in rounds that only the landlady chose, only what she thought my room should look like, only what she thought I should act like, only when she thought I should move out. You move out in 3 days or I call police. When other people couldn't hear her, see her on the kitchen camera. Exhausted, I sadly thought to myself, so, you said you were of Asian extraction, right? And now they're trying to test your limits as their own Asian kid? Snap. So, First order of malicious compliance meant I kept friendly email communication with the co-owner of the house, the only name that was on the lease anyway, not hers, behind her back as she spun out of control. B. Second order of malicious compliance. The landlady talked about calling the police so much that I decided that if I wasn't videoing her verbal attacks, I myself would call the local police to see instead how she would handle the unexpected visit. That was freaking awesome. The police told me that the only answer she knew to all the questions they asked was yes, while nodding her head, so they asked me to tell her daughter, fellow roommate, to say they came to calm her down and do a wellness check on me. This means the humiliation of the narcissistic ringleader, as word spreads that mom is unwell and screaming. C. Finally, the third order of malicious compliance was carried out when landlady decided to exact revenge in a different way while still not daring to open her mouth in front of me in private or in public anymore. She soon learned that her son had promised me my deposit money back the same day I was to move out, which made me very happy indeed. So here's how it went. This was a fish-eating household full of garlic, soy sauce, and all sorts of pickled fish and entrails considered Vietnamese delicacies, but constantly getting into the AC and causing me allergic reactions while I worked remotely for my employer in the confines of my room. The fancy Vietnamese cooking finally came to a halt as graduation day and my moving out day approached. Screaming landlady got bolder and more stressed out, and suddenly decided that anything non-fish that I cooked in the oven on Sunday for my weekly meals was to be considered as unhealthy, allergic, and gives me allergies. You must turn off the AC and open all the windows when you cook whatever that is from now on. Okay, crazy copycat. I'm going to do you a healthy dish of Buddhist karma and make sure you enjoy it then, I thought. On my last day of cooking there, I made sure I didn't buy any of my regular foods, only fish. I hadn't cooked in several days, so the entire group of family members and renters had gone out for Mother's Day with the other Vietnamese parents. The AC was on, just barely, with all the whining about the electricity bills dominating household conversations now. Windows closed, and living room fan adjacent to the open kitchen operating well. It was so simple to fry up all that fish while they were gone, and I fried all of it, then wrapped it like I would my regular food, stuck it in the freezer, went to my room, turned my air purifier on, and waited for them to get home with the visiting Vietnamese parents in tow or not. I could hear the coughing, the raising of windows, the comments, the back door to the kitchen being opened, but nobody came a-knocking on my room door to scream at me. And yes, I did get my deposit money back the same day I moved out, with no one daring to talk to me about anything while I loaded up the U-Haul. Now that's how to still enjoy fish while you're allergic to it. Only phone calls matter. You get what you asked for. My mother is toxic and likes to have unspoken rules for me that I never know exist until I break them. However, I have one time in my life where I broke one, but decided she was going to eat her own words because I had enough. A few years ago, her birthday in May landed on a weekday with Mother's Day that weekend. I was busy at work that week and was already working weekends and overtime, but I always made sure to remember her birthday and Mother's Day. I bought her presents, sent her a birthday card and Mother's Day card, texted her a happy birthday and Mother's Day, and even gave a very well thought out post on her FB. It's all I had time for. However, I never heard a word from her. She didn't call me, nor did I get a text if she even received the present that I sent her. No thank you, nothing. I was too busy to even ask about it, and with her typical behavior of ignoring me, I just didn't press her about it. In December, a special event came up in my life which I told her about several times. My sister had similar events, and my mother always remembered hers. So when it came and went with her saying nothing, I brought it up over text. I was told that she didn't realize it was important to me. I was upset and admittedly angry over once again being ignored and forgotten about. Cue her usual deflection in which she then turned the entire argument around on me, and that's when I found out she did receive my present. 7 months later. She then told me, and I quote, "You didn't think it hurt my feelings when you didn't bother to call me on my birthday or Mother's Day? Sorry, but Facebook cards just don't get it, and neither does texting." Fine. Cue my malicious compliance. For the next year, she never got a text, a FB post, birthday present, Mother's Day present, Christmas present, etc. But she got her phone call on her birthday and holidays. Phone calls are the only thing she received because, as she said, other forms of communication and thoughtful gestures didn't cut it. After a year of this, my mother sends in her reliable flying monkey. My sister calls me to tell me that Mom doesn't think you love her because you don't send her presents anymore. I'd like to say I stood my ground, but at the time I was still a doormat, so the malicious compliance ended. I'm no contact with my family now, but to this day, it makes me proud that for once I used her words against her and set a boundary. She never said that to me again, so it was worth it. Excellent work on fixing the issue, however. You will need to immediately undo it. Back when I was still very green in the IT world, at my second ever tech support job, I worked for a council, basically the equivalent of a county, in Australia. The council's works depot were expanding and they installed a portable building to use as extra offices. There was power when this was installed, but no one considered installing data points. This was in the days before Wi-Fi was common. Back then, 802.11b was the latest standard, and the council didn't have Wi-Fi at this location. The distance meant that Wi-Fi probably wouldn't have even worked anyway. Discussing this with staff on site and me recently learning how to crimp network cables, I suggested that if the staff at the works depot can dig a trench with their backhoe between the main building and portable building, I could just run a network cable in the trench, crimp each end, and we would have data to the building. So I did exactly that, and it worked. Once I am back at the main office, I proudly tell my boss that I have found a solution and made it happen. For those who might not know, Australia has very strict laws about who can do wiring, both electrical and data wiring. You need to be qualified and licensed to install things like power points, data sockets, run cables in wall, roofs, etc. On top of that, the cable I ran was directly buried in the ground. It was not rated for direct underground burial, just your garden variety network cable. I didn't know it at the time, but what I did was not permitted. My boss pointed out the multiple violations I made, specifically using the wrong grade of cable, and that as I was not a licensed cabler, I couldn't legally install it in the manner that I did. He was real cool about it, and understood that I wasn't aware, and was happy that I genuinely wanted to help, but mentioned that I would need to go and immediately go rip it all back up. Within a few days, we had a licensed cabler install the cable legally. Just give my kid to someone else. This story happened to me last year. Before I get into the story, I want to give some context and describe the setting where this took place. I'm not quite sure how to describe the setting because I don't think it is a thing in other countries, but I'll try my best. Every year I work at a kind of summer camp where children come to build little fortresses. Parents pay for a ticket and then drop their kids off every morning and pick them up every night for 5 days. It is a very fun concept, and I enjoy working there every year. At the start of the week, the kids divide into groups of about 20 kids and 3 adults who watch over them. As the adults, it is our task to watch over the kids, help them, and make sure they go home to their parents every night. I work with the smaller kids who are about 5, 7 years old, so they need a lot of watching. Now, on the story. Last year, me and my friend watched over a group of about 25 kids. We were handing the kids back to their parents at the end of the day when we noticed one of the kids sitting in the corner silently crying, "Let's call her Sarah." I went over to her and asked her why she was crying. Sarah: "Mommy is not coming to pick me up." Me: "Of course Mommy is coming, she will be here soon." Sarah: "No, I just called her, she said she's not coming." For context, Sarah was about 5, but she has a severe nut allergy, so she had a phone to call in case of emergency. Me: "How about I give Mommy a call to ask her?" I go back to my friend who is talking with one of the parent, and together we call Sarah's mom. Mom: "Hello, who is this?" Me: Hi, this is my name, from Sarah's camp. Mom, what do you want? I'm cooking diner. Me. I was just wondering when you were coming to pick Sarah up. Mom. Oh, I'm not coming. Like I said, I am cooking so I can't leave. Me. Oh, will someone else be coming for her? Mom. No, I didn't count on her being here for dinner, so I don't have enough food for her anyway. Me. But you know you have to pick her up at 5. It was about 5:15 at that point. Mom. Just give her to one of the other parents and we'll see her later. She hangs up the phone. I am standing there speechless. I know there are a few other kids from Sarah's class in our group, but her mother does not know that I have that information. For all she knows, I could just send her kid home with some random stranger. One of the other moms who is still there says she will take Sarah home. This is the mother of one of Sarah's classmates, so I let her take the kid. As she leaves, she says to Sarah that they will have to stop by the store to get some extra food so she can join them for dinner. This weird mom just let me send her kid home with someone else, and because she didn't buy enough food for her own kid, someone else had to go out off their way. Anyway, I have a ton of weird stories from this camp that I might post at some point. Sorry if my grammar is bad. English is not my first language. Dad told my sister, who told my mom, remarried, who told me that he's planning to visit us and stay in our tiny apartment during a very busy time. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Context. My, 29F, father is in and out of my life, depending on his mental health and his mood. There have been repeated no-contact periods when boundaries are crossed, but we are generally in a good place with a phone call monthly, frequent, hope you're good love you texts. He is dating a really awful woman, but my husband and I don't let it bother us and choose a relationship with him, with boundaries regardless. But she has not been invited to our home in over 4 years since a pretty major incident went down. We moved a 15-hour car ride away a few months ago, but previous to this, we maybe say him twice a year. Anyway, my mother and her partner drove out to see us, and told us that my sister told them that my dad expressed that he was coming to our town for a specific event I have going on, and that he and his girlfriend would just stay with us for a few days. This is the first I heard of it, other than my dad asking casually, so how do we get tickets for X event? Which is obviously not a, hey, can we come and when and by the way, can we stay in your tiny apartment that you also WFH, and part of me wants to get ahead of it. My husband and I moved so far away in part to make navigating our difficult families a little simpler. Or so we thought, so this is a major red flag for me. Should I ask him about it now or wait a few weeks and see if it even materializes further? This is apparently for the last weekend of November. I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I also know that hosting him during that time won't work for me, and he definitely is not welcome to stay in our home. Thanks in advance. I love my boyfriend, but long distance is slowly breaking me. 23, F, and 27M, long distance relationship for 5 years. I love him so much, and he's genuinely such a good person. He loves me too, I know that. We're both really busy with work and school, him more than me, and I know he has a lot on his plate. He still tries to call and talk to me every day, and I really appreciate that. It's just that sometimes it still doesn't feel like enough. Our conversations have become surface level, small talk, quick updates, but not the deep, meaningful connection we used to have. And that's what hurts the most. When we're together in person, it's perfect. Everything feels right. I'm calm, happy, and it just feels like home. But when we're apart, it's like that closeness fades, and I end up feeling really alone even though we're still together. He's not great with communication in general. He doesn't text much, takes a while to reply, and doesn't really open up about how he's feeling unless I ask. And I'm the opposite. I like talking, sharing little things, feeling like I'm part of his day. I'm not asking for constant texting. I just want to feel connected. I've told him how it makes me feel so many times. He always says he understands and will try, and I truly believe he means it, but it always ends up back in the same place. Things get better for a few days, and then slowly go back to how they were. I don't want to lose him. I love him more than anything. But I'm tired. It's starting to feel one-sided, and I don't know how to keep doing this without it breaking me. How do I handle feeling this disconnection even though he's trying? How do I find peace without feeling like I'm constantly begging for attention or depth? TLDR. I've been in a 5-year long-distance relationship. 23F, 27M. We both love each other and he really tries. But our communication is so surface level now that I feel disconnected and lonely, even though he calls every day. I don't want to lose him, but I don't know how to handle feeling this way anymore. My boyfriend, 23M, chose to travel with his new friends to a place we had planned to travel to initially. I'm 22F. We're in a long-distance relationship, and we had planned to visit a specific place together when I go to see him. Neither of us has ever been there, and I'm really looking forward to experiencing it for the first time together. But today he told me he's going there with his friends instead. I know it's just a tourist attraction, but it still made me feel weird and disappointed. I was excited for us to share that first-time experience, and now it feels like it won't be the same when we go together later because he'll have already been there. I keep trying to stop overthinking, but every time I imagine him going there with his friends, they aren't even close friends, just acquaintances, I feel this heavy, sinking feeling. It hurts to think he chose to experience something special with them first, instead of with me. Should I bring this up again, or just let it go? TLDR. My partner and I planned to visit a place for the first time together, but he decided to go there with acquaintances instead. I'm disappointed because it won't feel the same anymore now that he has been there first. My 16F boyfriend 17M rides my ass about everything. This will be a long one. So earlier I was texting my boyfriend. He asks for my Discord. I would have given it to him, but we were at school and I had no service. My school is in the middle of nowhere. I also forgot my username, so I needed to log back in on my Discord with my email, blah blah blah. Anyways, skip to when I told him I didn't know it at the moment, but I could get it later. He was like, "You can still see your username with no service." I'm not logged in, and I told him that I wasn't. So he just texted, "Why don't you want to give it to me? Are you hiding something I just texted that no, I wasn't, 'cause I'm not?" And asked him to wait 10 minutes until my mom picked me up and I had service, but he was just like, "I don't even want it." Honestly, I was so annoyed at that moment because he gets like this a lot, and I just gave the driest response. I get left on read for like 5, 6 hours. He always fucking does this whenever he's mad, acts like a toddler and gives me the silent treatment. I hate that so much, and I sure as hell ain't gonna double text because I'm not desperate. You're gonna give me this treatment? I'll give it back. I don't give a shit. When he finally texts me back, it's just, "I love you, been like 4 hours, and I just didn't respond because you can't just act like nothing happened. Be fucking for real, bro." I talked to 2 girls I work with about it. They told me I should leave him because we just don't work. Honestly, I agree a bit, because I've also kind of lost feelings because of all this. He's done it in the past when I've talked about wanting to join the military. I plan on it unless I decide on cosmetology. He'd just be like, "I'm going to bed," right after I'd talk about my future on the phone with him. He's a bit of a pacifist. Also, I told him if he doesn't support, then we should just end it. He says, "No, we can work through it, I guess." Then guess what? He just gets all grumpy when I bring it up. "You're free to leave, man. Ain't no one stopping you if you want to leave, 'cause clearly you don't support me." Also gets mad at me for drinking. We texted about it. His mom was a mean alcoholic. To clarify, I never get drunk. Sometimes I just have a drink or two. Not a big deal in my opinion, 'cause I can control myself. I understand how he feels because my dad was an alcoholic and abused me mentally plus physically when I was young. But it's one drink and he accuses me of getting drunk. I tell him I might have a drink and he's like, "Oh, so you're gonna get drunk? That makes me so mad." And then one time I went to his house with a bruise, he was like, "You get that when you were drunk? I haven't been drunk in weeks." Sorry. Long post. Felt like venting. I'm just so aggravated. Like I've told him how I feel about him riding my ass when I'm drunk. But then we got into a whole argument about that, maybe 3 weeks ago, I'm assuming. To add, we have been dating for almost 5 months. My first relationship, his third, I think. Thank you to everyone who read the whole post. Have a nice night. Might be some spelling errors. I'm really tired after working a 5-hour shift and going to school. I'll try to fix this post in the morning if I find fucked up spots. TLDR, my boyfriend bothers me about things. Edit 1. Adding on to the fact that the bruise was a dime size, maybe even smaller. Not a big deal. For me, true intimacy is getting access to someone's asshole. Bye guy here. We see people's breasts, dicks, and even vulvas fairly easily and readily, but for me, the asshole is far more intimate. The asshole is way more private and taboo than other body parts. It's often even shameful and embarrassing for people to show to another person, which is not the same for other body parts. But it's not just looking at someone's asshole. True intimacy is interacting with it. And really, I mean rimming, not anal naughties. Anal naughties can be painful and not for everyone, but also it's not actually that intimate if you're just shoving your dick into someone. What could be more intimate than someone showing you the most private, shameful place on their body, and then you putting your tongue directly on that area? And it can give such pleasure. Honestly, if you haven't tried it, you should. When I see someone hot on the street, I don't think just about fucking them. I think about putting my hot, wet mouth on their sensitive asshole while they moan with pleasure. That's true intimacy. Came back to Instagram after 5-6 years. Why do people view my stories daily but ignore my DMs? So I had my Instagram deactivated for about 5 or 6 years. I recently reactivated it, and honestly, it feels like stepping into a weird alternate universe. Being off IG that long, I literally forgot so many people even existed. Old classmates, guys from high school, people I used to talk to all the time. When I came back, I sent a few super short, friendly, "Hey, how's life been?" messages to like 3-4 people I remembered from back in the day. Nothing deep, nothing flirty, nothing weird, just catching up after years. Here's the weird part. Not a single one of them has even opened my messages. 0. But they watch every single one of my stories. Every day. Like, what is this, some new IG behavior I'm not aware of? Did something change while I was gone? Because to me it feels kind of annoying, low-key, disrespectful, and honestly stalkerish. If you can watch my stories daily, you can open a 3-word DM. I get if 1 or 2 people do that. Whatever. But all of them? It's just weird. Coming back to social media after years away really made me realize how fake everything feels. People will watch you but won't actually talk to you. Makes me wonder why I reactivated this thing in the first place. I was a disgusting piece of shit as a teenager, and don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself for it 20M here. This is some stuff that has weighed on my shoulders for years now. When I was ages 11, 15, give or take, I was addicted to sending nude pictures of myself and receiving pictures from others. Due to blurry and repressed memories, I couldn't tell you exactly how it started. I believe my brother introduced me to Omegle and Kik, though. I just know that it basically became my secondary coping mechanism alongside pornography. Being in a neglectful and abusive family leads to some kind of coping. I was very uncaring about the ages I did this with usually. Full-grown adults, people my age, you name it. I know for a fact I would do this with people aged 12 when I was 14 and 15. I was catfished by a lot of men who said they were girls too. I was also involved with my brother's friend group when I was 14. I was convinced that he was cool, and I wanted to be like him. There was so much naughties, drugs, alcohol. Some 17-year-old girl was having naughties with a 14-year-old every time we went to her house. I'd drink alcohol, but wouldn't smoke weed after a traumatizing experience with an edible. They would pressure me constantly to smoke with them. Hilariously, I never managed to lose my virginity. Did get my first kiss stolen by that same 17-year-old girl. I believe I developed OCD after all of this, and have been incredibly scared for the last 5 years, to the point where I can't function. I'm constantly paranoid that my pictures are still being circulated by adults, that my numerous accounts I used are still on the internet somewhere. I also believe I have POCD as a theme. I struggle to interact with anybody under the age of 18, and often have painful, anxiety-inducing flashbacks of my behavior. I'm such a different person now. I don't resemble that disgusting teenager at all. But this haunts me. I had poor understanding of healthy age gaps and just relationships and naughties in general. I am absolutely disgusted by myself. Petty, eclectic, adolescent revenge. Long so. Back in HS, if you had any jock-like tendencies, I was someone you'd think might be a good target for your bullying. That would last exactly as long as your first scheme, when you'd find out that besides being a glasses-wearing geek carrying 20 pounds of Jules Verne and Tolkien hardbacks, who was also a theater kid, 3 strikes right there, I was also clever, vicious, and vengeful. After the wheels fell off your car, or your locker vomited rancid tapioca after a long weekend, Most moved on to safer targets. But this is a milder, pettier tale. Being 15, hormonal and picky, I gravitated for a lady one school year ahead of me, who was one of the few whose interests and habits were as diverse as my own. Because I was in AP everything, I got permission to audit her psychology class, it being a college prep course taught by one of the great educators of my experience. She and I were both studious and quiet, so generally left alone. Often in his class, short films were shown, then discussed and analyzed. Being high school, note passing was a thing. Cell phones and IM were decades away. Teacher, however, was a master at sneaking up on those folk, grabbing their missives, then reading them aloud in front of everyone once the lights went back on. GF and I were among the writers. We were also careful. But the law of averages catch us all eventually. Our small notebook was seized and spirited away. The film ends, the lights come up, and teacher, with an evil grin, flourishes the book and anticipates our embarrassment. Less studious classmates awaited our downfall with ill-concealed glee. Remember the Tolkien reference? Wait for it. With theatrical flair, our notebook was opened, and page upon page of our most private thoughts were laid bare before his eyes, or they would have been if he'd not been up against two teenagers who had committed to memory not one, but both of J.R.R.'s elvish alphabets. Honestly, his expression trending from glowing triumph through consternation, finally settling on grudging acceptance, was a thing of beauty, game, and match. He handed the notebook back, and life in class resumed. I had a great time when I took his class for credit the next year. I knew both the study material as well as his jokes. Teacher having a ready-made straight man made for a very pleasant semester. I think I should break up with my boyfriend. My boyfriend has a really good life. He's not rich, and he definitely has his challenges, but his family supports him, and thanks to their love and support, he was able to make it through college without interruption or needing to work. He now has an amazing job and an amazing life that I don't fit into. My life has been the total opposite. No support, had to do everything on my own, and I kept falling flat on my ass, and I'm now extremely behind in life. I'm doomed for a life of blue-collar work. He loves my strength and resilience, but I hate living like this, and I find myself drained, depressed, and constantly stressed out. I pray to die every single day. I love him so much, but I fear that I'll only slow him down. I told him he should find someone who's on par with himself, but he became extremely upset with me and shut me down. But at this point, it's time for us to be honest with ourselves. I don't know why he would want to be with someone as garbage like me, who accomplished nothing and won't be able to until years later in the future. I have no value or worth, and I do think he'll be better off being with someone else, someone who has the world at their hands like he does, someone who can actually bring value to his life unlike myself. I want to set him free so he can live his wonderful life, but how would I go about it when he refuses to free himself? You get what you deserve. So about 10 years ago, a family member of mine had to have in-house therapy. We had therapists in our home anywhere from 5 to 6 days a week. My spouse had gotten some heavy pain medication to treat an issue, think, and then came to me and asked me if I had been taking his medication as it was regulated, and he was missing a significant amount of pills. Now, mind you, he didn't leave the bottle just sitting around either. We determined he hadn't forgotten and taken extra. I had not been taking them. Thus, someone else must have been taking them who had access to our home. This was tricky as we had 4 different therapists coming to our home on a weekly basis. We developed a plan. Spouse also had some medication to treat for when he might have constipation. We replaced the O with the medication to make you go in the O bottle, left it where he normally kept it, and then we waited. Midweek, one of our therapists suddenly developed explosive diarrhea and had to leave our home early. FAFO. We didn't have a problem with medication missing after this. Family expected me to pay for everything and didn't give me choice. I just need to get this off my chest. I live abroad, far from my family. My grandpa recently passed away, and in my culture it's tradition to create prayer books for the deceased and share them with the community. I wanted to be a good granddaughter and agreed to pay for the books, but I asked if I could choose where we get them from to avoid ridiculous prices. Somehow the whole family interpreted that as an unlimited budget. I never agreed to that, but I didn't say anything at first. Today, I shared some design options in the family group chat for everyone to vote on. Then my aunt just stepped in and said my oldest cousin will be choosing the design and I need to coordinate with her. The said cousin then chimed in, saying she has chosen a design. No input from me or anyone else in the family. I told my mom and aunt privately that if I have no say in this and she's just making decisions alone, then I'm not paying the full cost. I'm willing to pitch in, but not foot the whole bill blindly. I'm bracing for the usual backlash. Being called ungrateful, hearing that I'm rich, because I earn in higher currency, and that I should just pay because I can. Honestly, in my family, keeping peace is usually prioritized above anything else, so I'm not sure if they are actually entitled or if I'm overreacting here. Edit. Thank you all for the solid advices. Setting boundaries is not really something I grew up with, so your responses really helped me see that I'm not overreacting. I ended up completely backing off from paying for the books. I offered to help with other costs, and as you guys advised me to do, I gave them a set amount. As expected, my family started messaging me asking if that was true. Turns out they have been banking on my partner to contribute too. I stand by my boundary and hopefully this family drama will fizzle out soon, but I won't hold my breath. How I stopped my neighbor from having loud naughties until 4 a.m. This happened a few years ago now. We had a downstairs neighbor, a single man who had a friend with benefits. She would turn up at around 10 p.m. and stay until the next morning. Ordinarily, I don't care about other people's noise as long as it's not excessive and keeps within reasonable hours, 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. But this time, oh boy, she sounded like a buffalo being electrocuted. Normally, I'd just put my headphones on and crack on, but I had a migraine, needed to sleep, and they were at it, intermittently, until around 4/5 a.m., with sounds of doors slamming and glass hitting the bottom of the outside bins in between. Once I'd recovered from my migraine, early that morning I waited until the other neighbors had gone to work and treated the seemingly hungover downstairs pair to a very loud rendition of an album I'd not long purchased, Igor, Spirituality and Distortion for the Curious, followed by each and every loud chore I'd been putting off the past few days. They never did it again. Terminated without warning. Reported them for tax evasion. I was working a 1099 position that was bringing in around an extra $3K a month. I was able to do this job alongside my full-time job with no issues. I turned in my work on time, I attended all meetings, and even had gotten a great report from one of my clients. My job must have suspected I was doing more than one position, however. They started demanding that I check my email at least once an hour, and even set hours for me as a 1099 worker. I had to report when I was out of office, whether for injury or something else. I pointed out how I was a 1099 contractor, and that none of those things were a contractual obligation. In fact, the entire reason I took on the extra work with this company was the flexibility. They ignored this and continued to push. A few weeks ago, at nearly midnight, I received a termination email. No phone call, not even a text message. I went to log on to my computer the next day and saw my credentials were invalid. I reached out to my supervisor and was told to check my personal email, if you even do that, and that was the end of it. I stewed in it a few days before I finally did something. I reported them for mislabeling my position as 1099, when in fact I should have been a W-2 employee. The IRS has a ton of information on what constitutes 1099 work and what doesn't, and I met none of the criteria for 1099 work. They were doing this to avoid paying taxes on their employees and to avoid having to offer insurance. So, I reported them. I would wager that this is still ongoing for them, as it's only been a few weeks. I'm not excited about potentially putting people out of work, but I'm tired of being fucked over by employers. Asterisk, asterisk, edit asterisk, asterisk. I submitted a form to my State Department of Labor and will be calling them tomorrow. Customer actually apologized to me for having an attitude, and I respect that. I helped a customer check out. She returned about 10 minutes later to tell me that the item she bought was missing a piece and asked for another of the piece she was missing. I politely explained that our policy is that I cannot give her another one without looking at the item first, just to make sure. She got sour because she left it in her car, huffed and rolled her eyes as she stormed out to go get it. Maybe 5 minutes later, The phone rang. I picked it up with my usual customer service greeting, and the person on the other end said, "Hey, I'm the girl who was just in there with an attitude. I want to apologize for that. I found item in the bag." It brought a smile to my face, and I told her it's all good. I get that we all have bad days sometimes. She insisted that she really was so sorry and she felt terrible, and I thanked her for calling to apologize. It was just a really nice thing to hear, and I respect her for that. In a way, it was also reassuring that not everyone who is rude is necessarily a bad person. Not that that excuses rudeness. I'm just a bleeding heart, and I love reminders that humans are humans and not evil NPCs. My mom is in the throes of a midlife crisis, and it's destroying the family. Hello, Reddit. I'm only here to vent about a situation that is causing a lot of trouble for my family, and perhaps seeking advice on the best way to handle it. I'm 23M, a middle child living in the US, and I have an insanely large family. There is 10 of us. To be clear, this is a family made from adoption and marriage, so while I have 5 brothers and 4 sisters, 3 of them are step-siblings, 1 half-sibling, and 3 cousins we adopted. My mom is 47 and stepfather is 56 and have been married for almost 20 years. We never had a lot of money growing up, but managed to scrape by, and we're all doing mostly all right. Not to say that my parents didn't do their best to raise us well. None of us have ever been arrested or have gotten into any sort of trouble with the law, and we have mostly since broken up into groups that live on our own. I currently live with a stepbrother and cousin in an apartment in my town, and have been since I was 19. At this point, I've been mainly an observer in this recently developed behavior from my mom, and it's quite concerning to say the least. When I say we never had a lot of money, I absolutely mean it. My parents worked really hard to raise us, but weren't fiscally responsible to the point where we were constantly harassed by collection agencies and getting our stuff repossessed. This hasn't changed too much since we've become adults, but with the lack of kids to raise, you would assume that my parents could finally find a footing and save their money. But nope. For the last few years, my mother and sister have become more like high school BFFs that travel together constantly, going on concert tours and spending weeks away from home, leaving my 2 cousins by themselves. Well, while this isn't a big deal in its own right, 2 of them are disabled and need supervision, as one frequently experiences severe seizures and the other is developmentally disabled. My stepdad is there every day, but he works as an electrician and doesn't get home until later in the evening. What really bothers me is my cousins being left alone. I care about them and are essentially my own siblings at this point, and I'm annoyed that my mother won't get the one with seizures on medication and claims that there isn't a neurologist that can prescribe him medication in our town. This is false BTW. My family also has a large amount of animals that are left alone, including birds, cats, dogs, and reptiles, which do not get the care they need most of the day. I visit when I can, but am currently working full-time and attending college, so my hands are tied. This is the same with most of my siblings that have moved out, and some have been alienated to the point where they will likely never step foot in that house again. All of my siblings, except for my sister and youngest brother, have expressed concerns for these developments. My disabled cousin that lives with me is also highly agitated because my mom owes him $1,000. My grandparents are also owed money and can't do much to help since they're in poor health. Another thing that bothers me is that my youngest sibling, the only one still attending high school, is going with them on these vacations and is missing Tilda 8-10 weeks of school a year. A truancy officer had to get involved. There is some other concerning behavior that I've noticed, such as a blatant disregard for responsibility on the home front. Last year, my mother went to Disney World with a few colleagues and forgot to pay the electric bill, which caused the family home to be without power for 2 weeks. I had to bring siblings in to shower or sleep at my place. We live in the South, and it gets really hot here during summer. As well as my mother financing her dream car, a Mustang, though it isn't really affordable at $600 plus a month. At the end of the day, I know this has to be some sort of midlife crisis. The excessive vacations in lieu of saving for retirement, trade-in of an economical car for a sports car, and other behavior which I don't want to go into detail about, all points to it. However, my concerns are always brushed aside, and I don't know what to do. My stepdad seems to be all right with it, but at this rate, He's going to be working and renting the family house until he dies. What do I do? How can I address these concerns and get past the gaslighting? Any suggestions are welcome. Edit. My mother was a stay-at-home mom for most of my childhood, but recently began working at a daycare with my sister 6 months ago. I have no idea how they're able to take so much time off work. Living with my mom is suffocating me. I've always done things to make my parents proud, but my mom's the only one who sees it as a brag. When I became a student in one of the top universities in my country, she treated me like I was bragging about something. I'm not even sharing anything to her or how I'm suffering, alone, depressed, struggling, and anxious about so many things. When I passed university, she still calls me that. But when I do achieve something, she treats it like it's hers. Fuck. Even during my graduation day, I didn't do the things I wanted. It was all her who planned everything. I just wanted to eat out, but she insisted that we invite her side of the family in our house and we cook and buy food and eat together. I was too tired and pissed after eating because it didn't feel like a celebration. It was more of her feeding them food they didn't ask for, and they didn't even know why they were there. They just know we're celebrating something. Right now, as an incoming freshman, I'm looking for a dorm. The university is at least an hour away from our house, and the city my university is in frequently floods during rainy days, and it gets really traffic in there, so the best choice was to have a dorm. I was looking for cheap ones, the same value that she would pay a school bus to pick me up and drive me home. Although it's hard to find dorms like those, I kept on looking. When I got home late, she asked me why I was looking for dorms when I don't even have money to pay. Take note that our family is well off. We don't struggle with money. I've always done things to make them proud. But it's not right that I should be begging to get a fucking dorm. She willingly pays for my brother's dorm while I'm looking for ones that are less expensive. My brother admittedly doesn't even study much while I need more time to study, and it feels like 24 hours isn't even enough for it. Other parents are treating their smart kids like gems, but why am I being treated like dirt? I deserve good things too. Peas. I'm crying, my skincare is ruined. To love you from afar. Together we are fire and passion. Beautiful moments filled with care and love. Holding you in my arms, your head on my chest, I grab you tightly and a single tear lands in your hair. The rain drumming on the bedroom window on a lazy day. The yellow flowers in the spring, the buds of May. You were my summer's day, the strong sun peeking through the blinds in the burning heat. Land of the rising sun. You always wanted to go there, remember? One day you will, honey. The cold winter nights that still feel warm next to you. How I wish I was still next to you. We listen to music late at night. Love is a bitch, the singer states. Isn't that the truth you mumble while you take my hand and kiss me deeply? For you, love means letting go of all control, giving freedom while trusting with your whole heart, like leaping off a cliff. Maybe you are right. What the hell do I know about love after all? I wanted to grab on tightly and never let go. You don't trust me, you yell at me. Why can't we just make it work? I cry. Fuck, 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 you yell in despair. You run away again. The pattern repeating itself. If it were up to me, we could do it together. Break the pattern, I mean. But you would have to stop running from me, from your own self. Because I am a mirror to your deepest wound, and you are a mirror to mine. You are my shadow, and I am yours. We both know this, I think. You told me about your childhood, trying to tell me something. It wasn't until recently I put the pieces together. I wish I could have been more open and told you more about mine, too. I can't do it anymore. You say you love me. You say you wasted your time with me. Which one is it? I know. This story is from my side, so you might appear the villain. I can't even admit to the horrible things I did to you, can I? Out of fear, out of love. But does the reasons justify the crimes? I am sorry too. That is why it is safer to love you from afar. I don't want to be always scared that you will leave me. I don't want you to be always scared that you are not enough. You told me I hurt you more than anyone before. And I told you the same. You are the worst of all of them. I love you. I hate you. I love you. I hate you. Fuck, fuck, fuck. How did we manage to screw it up this bad? When all we both wanted was to love and be loved. This is why it is safer to love you from afar. I was written up for abandoning post. To clarify my title, I am not in the military. This takes place when I was 20, working summer jobs while living with my parents to pay for college. I was already working full-time as a waiter at a very fun restaurant that I really enjoyed, but I wanted to make a little extra money, so I got a job as a host at another restaurant. Let's call it Sapphire Wednesdays. I knew immediately that the place was mismanaged, mostly cued in by the manager having a beer at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday during my interview, but my responsibilities as a host were very easy. Seat customers, inform servers, sweep the floor near the front. I had already been working in restaurants since I was 16, so my training was over in about an hour. About a week after I was hired, sometime after lunch but before dinner rush, there was a car accident in front of the store. A car was sideswiped by a semi and run into a telephone pole on a busy suburban road. I told a server to call 911 and sprinted out and across the parking lot to check on the car. Thankfully, the woman in the car was shaken but fine. The truck driver was out of his truck and on the phone with 911, and other drivers had stopped as well. A very nice moment of humanity from folks on their way home from work. I decided that everything was being handled as best as possible, so I went back into the restaurant. I walk back in to find the manager standing at the empty host stand in front of a nearly empty dining room asking, "Where did you go?" "There was an accident. I went out to make sure everyone was okay." Manager asks, "Why did you feel the need to do that, IDK jackass, because I'm a human?" After a brief back and forth, the manager says he has to write me up for abandoning post. I was too confused and angry to argue, so I told him that was fine. He then reminded me that one more write-up within my first month means I'd be fired. I went home and explained all this to my dad, who was laughing through his anger, and suggested I quit and just focus on the other job. I decided he was right, but hatched a plan. Rather than quit, I showed up an hour late to my next shift that the same manager worked. This happened to be Friday night during dinner, and I was the only host scheduled. The manger was furious that he had to get out of the office and do actual work. So when I walked in, he saw me and immediately began berating me. I asked if I was going to get written up for this, to which he replied, in front of a crowd of customers, I might add, "You bet your ass you're getting written up. Oh no, I guess I'm fired then. See ya." I went home and drank whiskey and smoked a cigar with my dad on the back porch to celebrate.